Hey everyone, Bill Lethman here with Money Evolution. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Social Security going broke. Now, this is a topic I've done a couple of other times here on the YouTube channel, but what I thought I'd do today for 2023 is make a couple of updates, talk about what's going on right now, what are some of the current concerns, and also what are some of the things that Congress and Social Security might do to try to get our Social Security back on track. So real quick though, before I get into today's video, if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do at Money Evolution, check out some of the links right below this video. There we've got some information about our comprehensive financial plan called Wealth Vision. We also have our retirement planning course called the Retirement Time Machine, and we've got some links to some great free resources that you can check out on our website. So according to the latest Social Security Trustees report that came out in 2022, Social Security says that there's enough funds currently in the trust fund that should last us through 2034. Now, 2034 is really not that far away, just a little bit over a decade. So what happens after 2034? Well, according to that trustees report, they say that there's enough money that's going to be coming in from all the people still contributing to Social Security that should cover up to about 77% of our expected benefits. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly not going to be happy if I see over a 20% reduction in the amount of Social Security benefits that I thought I was going to be getting. And I don't think you probably would either. So hopefully, and what we're all hoping for, I guess, is that at some point Social Security and Congress are going to get together and they're going to make some changes to Social Security that can hopefully get our Social Security benefits back on track so that we're not faced with that dilemma maybe a decade or so from now where we're going to see these big cuts in our Social Security benefits. Okay, so before I get into some of the details as to how Congress and Social Security may go about fixing Social Security to get it back on track, let's talk for just a second about the last time Social Security ran into a deficit like it is today. So back in 1982, Social Security started to run a deficit. And what that means essentially is that there's more money that's being paid out in benefits than is currently being collected from all of the payroll contributions that everybody's making. And so at that time, Congress acted very quickly. And in 1983, they passed the Social Security Reform Act. And what they did at that time is they did really two major things. Number one is they created a graduated schedule to change your full retirement age. And we've talked about this in other videos, but full retirement age is that age that you get to where you're going to get an unreduced Social Security benefit. Of course, you can collect it early at 62. You can delay it past that full retirement age as late as age 70. But that full retirement age is when you're going to get that full unreduced benefit. And so prior to 1983, when they made the Social Security reform changes, Social Security full retirement age for everybody was age 65. And so when they passed this, they created a graduated schedule that basically said that if you were born before 1938, you were going to stay with Social Security benefits at that age 65 for full retirement age. But if you were born after 1938, you were going to be part of this graduated schedule that started to add basically months onto your Social Security full retirement age, basically going from 65 and 2 months and all the way up to age 67 if you were born after 1960 or 1960 or later. Then you were going to get maxed out at that age 67 for full retirement benefits. Now, the other thing they did in 1983 when they made these changes is they also, for the first time, made Social Security benefits taxable. So in 1983, they said up to 50% of your Social Security benefits can be subject to tax. And that was the first time that happened. In 1993, a decade later, they passed another Social Security reform bill that said now up to 85% of your Social Security benefits can be subject to tax. And that's where we sit today is at that level. So now, for purposes of Social Security taxation, they're going to use something called your combined income. And combined income essentially is going to be your adjusted gross income. Then they're going to add in any non-taxable interest that you may be getting from things like tax-free municipal bonds. And then also they're going to add in half of your Social Security benefits. So it's kind of interesting that your Social Security benefits are actually going to go into the calculation for determining if your Social Security benefits are actually going to be subject to tax. But all of that added together is going to be your combined income. And you also may know too that that's going to be before any deductions as well. So that adjusted gross income is kind of that more that top line number that you have there for income purposes. And then in 1983, they set some thresholds that if you were over those thresholds, again, up to 50% of your Social Security benefit could be subject to tax. So in 1983, that threshold for a single individual was $25,000. And if you were married filing a joint tax return, it was $32,000 at that time. And interestingly, they have not adjusted those numbers for inflation. So it's that same threshold that we still have today in 2023. And again, as incomes have gone up and even as Social Security benefits have gone up, more and more people are obviously hitting that level where their Social Security benefits are going to be taxable to the point where probably almost everybody is going to have their Social Security benefits subject to tax. And then real quick, what they did in 1993, they expanded that again, that now up to 85% of your Social Security benefits can be subject to tax. And so what that said is that if you're single, if you're over $25,000 of income, that combined income, up to $34,000 of combined income, you're going to have 50% of your benefit subject to tax. And then if you're over $34,000 as a single, then up to 85% of your Social Security benefits could be subject to tax. Married filing joint, that number is going to be $32,000 to $44,000. You're going to have up to 50% of your Social Security benefits subject to tax. And if you're over $44,000, then you're going to hit that 85% level where up to 85% of your Social Security benefit could be subject to tax. Okay, so what are some things that Social Security could do to try to get our Social Security benefits back on track? Well, I'm going to give you 5 things that I think are a possibility. And of course, there's probably going to be a whole lot of other opinions out there and a whole lot of other things that may be options as well. But these are the 5 things that I think are probably the most likely, in my opinion. And I'm going to kind of give them out in order of what I think is probably most likely to happen. So we talked about the 1983 reforms, and the 2 things they did there was increasing the retirement age and making Social Security taxable. So I think the easiest thing to do, almost a no-brainer to some extent, is to just simply make up to 100% of our Social Security benefits subject to tax. So increase that from 85% to 100%. And again, if they don't change those thresholds for who is going to be hitting that 100% tax, then more and more people are going to be hitting that as they make more money, and those things have not been inflation adjusted. Number 2 is going to be, again, the same thing they did in 1983, and that's going to be to change the Social Security full retirement age. Now, of course, people are living longer, and that's a good thing, but for Social Security, that means that they're going to have to pay those benefits out over much longer periods of time. So if we look back to how that kind of transpired in 1983, when they said that anybody born before 1938 was going to be affected, what that meant essentially is that if you were 46 years old or older, you were not going to have any material change to that full retirement age for you. But if you were younger than 46, then you probably saw, or you did see, one of those increases to the full retirement age. So I think that'll probably be similar to how they would do it, in my opinion, is change the full retirement age, but more than likely pick kind of a line in the sand and say that if you're over this age, you're not going to have any changes to the Social Security full retirement age, but if you're younger, you're going to have some graduated schedule there, so somebody definitely can have some time to prepare for the fact that that full retirement age is going to be moving. They're not going to spring that on somebody that's 60 years old, planning on collecting Social Security in a couple of years, or maybe even a 50-year-old that is, much closer to retirement. But if you're, 45 years old or younger, you're in your 20s or your 30s, more than likely, I think at some point we're going to see a change to that full retirement age. Number 3 is going to be increasing what's called the Social Security taxable wage base. So as you may know, that you pay 6.2% of your wages into the Social Security system. And if you're employed, your employer is putting in 6.2% into it as well to double that up. And if you're self-employed, you're going to actually pay both sides of that. So you're going to actually pay 12.4% into the Social Security system. But there's an upper threshold for how much in earnings are going to be subject to that 6.2% tax. And for 2023, that number is $160,200. So, of course, that number has been going up pretty steadily over the years, usually with inflation and everything. But they could simply just, make that a bigger jump, or uncap it and say that, hey, at any level of income, you're going to still pay that 6.2%. And that would obviously bring a lot of additional money into the Social Security system. But it would, of course, come at some extra tax and different ramifications for that. So that's another thing thing there, number three. Number four, I think, is probably a little less likely to that, and that would be to increase that 6.2%. And even if they did it by a small amount, increase it from 6.2 to 6.3 or to 6.5, those seemingly small fractions of a percent can end up having some very, very big contributions to Social Security, as we kind of collectively look at that for the whole working population there. They could also means test it too. So they could make some kind of determination, say if you have an income in retirement over a certain amount, we're going to actually cut your Social Security benefits. I don't think that's really that likely. I think honestly, those other things really can have a much bigger impact on the Social Security system and everything, and I think are a lot more fair because let's face it, everybody that's collecting Social Security has put into that and is expecting some type of a return back from that. And of course, that return today compared to what it was in the past, maybe shrinking a little bit, because of the way the system works and everything. But nonetheless, there is, there is a contribution that most of us want to see some return back on that. The last thing I'll say too is they can change the Social Security cost of living adjustment. So they've talked about that a little bit as well, using a different formula to calculate the cost of living adjustment. So for 2023, as many people know, they increased the Social Security benefits by 8.7% because of the high inflation that we had in 2022. So if they kind of bring that down a little bit and say, even though inflation may be much higher, we're going to give Social Security a smaller increase of that. That's another way that they can try to fix Social Security benefits. So there's 5 or 6 different ways that Social Security and Congress may act to try to get our Social Security benefits back on track. And again, one of the main reasons that I'm making this video again today in 2023 is because it's now almost 5 years since 2018 when we first started running this recent deficit, and Congress really hasn't seemed to make this a very big priority. But I think it's a huge priority, and I think that sooner than later, I think we need to start making some of these adjustments to kind of fix our Social Security and get it on track and really kind of relieve some of the stress that some of us may be feeling about whether or not our Social Security benefits are going to actually remain intact. So there you have it. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like or subscribe button. Check out those free resources below, learn a little bit more about what we do, and I look forward to seeing you back in our next video.